And all of a sudden, everything just stopped. This is a fraud on the American public. This is an embarrassment to our country. We were getting ready to win this election. Frankly, we did win this election.
The president can basically introduce two kinds of lawsuits. One, accusations of electoral fraud and wrongdoing, or he can contest state legislature laws that organize how votes are counted in order to prevent votes in certain states from being counted. So he can go to the Supreme Court directly. And that, of course, has happened in the past, famously in 2000, during the standoff between George W. Bush and Al Gore. In the first case of electoral fraud, that claim has to be supported by evidence. And the Supreme Court, regardless of its composition, would have to rule on the basis of evidence, which prima facie doesn't seem to exist. All the claims that the President Trump has made, that thousands of ballot votes have been found in dumpsters or in rivers, have not been corroborated by any evidence or even by any witness. And so it's quite unlikely that the courts will give a lot of credence to accusations that actually have no material basis. The second type of suit is more tricky because it amounts to attempting to change the rules of the game after polling took place, right? What the Republicans have done here is create limitations on the counting of mail-in ballots, right? Not allowing certain states to process mail-in votes before polling days. And now they're trying to limit the time by which these mail-in ballots can be counted after polling day, which of course is part of an intentional strategy to hurt Joe Biden's chance of getting elected. The question really is whether the courts will see through it or not, or whether it will be inclined to see through it or not. Every 4 years, you have 538 people who meet in 51 locations around the US to pick the winner of the presidential elections. There's this misconception that people vote for a president. They actually vote for an elector within their state. And each state is allotted a certain number of electors, reflecting their demography, but also a certain historical legacy. Right? It was a system meant to ensure that states would be appropriately represented in the process that leads to the election of a president. So there's always a risk that an elector would basically pick a different candidate than what is reflected in the results of their state, that they're called faithless electors. But they're very rare. I mean, they happen in history, but they're very rare. So governors and legislators intervene in the nomination process of these electors, but once the election has taken place, they don't really play a role with the Electoral College as such. So a contingent election occurs when there's a tie in the Electoral College. When for some reason, the two candidates are stuck at 269 and 269, when no one gets the magical number of 270. Or when there's a serious dispute over the Electoral College tally. In these cases, there is a provision in the Constitution, the 12th Amendment, that enables the Congress to decide who becomes president and vice president. The president is elected by the House of Representatives, and the vice president is picked by the Senate, where each senator gets one vote. But in the House, the vote is determined by state delegations rather than individual lawmakers. What it means is that whichever party has the majority in that state gets one vote. That also means that, say, Alaska, for example, who has only one representative to the House, and Texas, who sends 36 members to Congress, get only one vote each. And in the current situation, it gets tricky because the Democrats have control of the House, they have the majority, but they have majority in fewer states than the Republicans. And the Senate, of course, is likely to remain under Republican control. It also gets complicated because the vote takes place with the newly elected House and not the incumbent one. So you would need, in any case, to have all the results of all the congressional races and all the senatorial races to come out first and get certified before you can actually get there.